Hey everyone, Jeremy here, aka Mr. UW. It's an informational video for you guys. As you know, we're getting ready to release this CPS2 Mult-kit, and though we've had a lot of interest in this kit, I've been pretty surprised in the amount of, the lack of amount of knowledge that people have about the CPS2 system. There's a lot of interest and love for the games, but a lot of people don't have a lot of knowledge about how the system works. So I'm going to start with some basic info first. What you see before you is a sampling of the different regions of the B-boards. These are for my personal collection. There's only 3 games I don't have an original board of right now. But let's start off here. Probably the most common are your green and your blue. Green is for the Japanese region. Blue could be for USA or Europe. We also have our orange, which is for South America, the Hispanic versions. We have gray, which is Asia. And you have the yellow rentals, which is which could be any region. They're ones that were rented out by Capcom themselves to operators to see if they wanted to buy the actual game or whatever. And I personally have USA, Japanese, and South America rental boards in my collection. And sometimes the rental boards, when you buy them as a set, you won't get a rental A board. You'll just get like a regular. If it's a Japanese version rental B board, you'll just get like a regular Japanese. I was lucky enough to get a rental B board and A board matching up. So let me show you these connections. The main reason for these, the different regions, the main difference is the connectors on the bottom. If you can see, these are all female. All 4 of these are female, and they're all the same length. And if you actually look on the Japan one, it has the exact same connectors. And so basically, Japan, USA, and Europe B-boards are interchangeable between the two. Now, at one time it was thought that Hispanic and Asia boards could be swapped about, because if you look at these, there's a Hispanic. This one connector is longer than the other 3. Well, when I pull open the gray one, it also has one connector that's longer than the other 3. But you'll also notice these have male pins here instead of female, like the USA and Japan boards. And Hispanic has male, 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 1 female. But also, if you look at them, you'll see the one that's longer is a separate connector also. So Asia has to be put on an Asia A board. Hispanic or orange South America boards have to be matched to a South America A board. So you can imagine why Japan and US ones are more common. They're interchangeable. They're just meant a lot more than produced. And all that. And just to show you that I do have a actual rental A board, which is more rare than the rental B boards. It says Capcom rental right there. That's in Japanese. That's rental. I've also seen like for example, this is a USA board. It says USA in the middle. I've also seen this yellow for a rental board. It just said USA with a yellow sticker instead. That's that. Next section, I'm going to show you some revisions of the B-board PCB. Alright, so what I have before you are 2 different revisions of the B-board. And basically they fall into 2 classes. They have the revision 3 and 4 PCBs, which are very similar. And we have the 5, 6, and 7 revision PCBs that are also very similar. Now the 5, 6, and 7, you can put a G-PAL on it. You can just plug it right into the PAL 3 slot, plug in the Mult-kit on top of it, and it'll work right away. This is an example of that revision right here. All right, and the way you find your revision is you look right here below your graphics ROMs. That says 93646B-7. The only part that's important to you is the dash and then the number. This is -7. If you look at this other one I have here, this is a GigaWing. That's one factory converted by Capcom. It's in my collection. -4. So this one's a revision 4 PCB. If you look at this PCB, it's very clean. There's no jumper wires or anything on it. It's a revision 7. So what they did, they just plugged in the G-PAL. If you look at this, it says BGS B3G. The letter at the end is what determines what type of PAL it is. So if you look at your board and it has a BGS B3F, well, you have an F-PAL, which an F-PAL can be used with this kit with some modification, but a G-PAL is the easiest way to go. Any other revision of the PAL will not work with the kit. You'll have to buy a G-PAL to do it. We're not selling F-PALs, but we can get you a G-PAL. But if you happen to have an F-PAL, you can convert that. Otherwise, we're selling G-PALs. I'm selling them personally for $6 plus shipping. So this one works just like that. Pretty easy. 5, 6, and 7 revision. It's fine. Well, let's just say you don't. There are a lot of revision 3 and 4 PCBs out there. And like I said, Capcom converted this revision 4 to work with GigaWing. So I have my GigaWing. This is from my personal collection. If you look here, there's a, it's kind of hard to read in this light, but that is a G-PAL there. It is a revision 4. But when you look on the back, boom, there's a jumper wire. Now, it looks pretty clean. That's because it was a, like I said, it was a Capcom factory conversion. It came to me like this. Now, the instructions online that you'll see say to go, to convert this 3 and 4 PCB to work with a G-PAL, it says you have to lift pin 9 on the G-PAL, solder a wire to it, and then run that wire to CN3 pin C13. Well, this is CN right up here. This is CN3. So basically what the instructions online are telling you is to take pin 9, which is in a dip package. The notch is facing up. Let me show you this real quick. This is just a bigger dip chip. It's going to be easier for me to show you. But the notch is facing up. If I can get this to focus. Maybe, maybe not. Well, anyway, here's the notch is facing up. The way you count the pins is you just start on this side and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way down. Then you come back up, and then you continue counting up this direction. All right, that's how you count the dip pins. So what we're doing is we would take pin 9, the G-PAL. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're saying to take this pin right there. That's pin 9. Take it out of the socket, bend it up, solder a wire to it, and then run the wire over here to CN3, C13. So you would just count. This is CC. It says here, the CN3. That says C1, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way till you get to 13. So you'd run a wire from C13 here all the way down to pin 9 on the PAL, and you have a wire running across the top. To me, that's super ugly. If you look here, this is CN3 right here, CN3, which is for the bottom connector. It connects, okay, CN3 on the bottom, CN3's top solder. This is CN5. All these wires connect together. All these pins connect together. So C13 on CN5 is connected to C13 on CN3. So what Capcom did was they took the wire from the PAL the socket on the bottom, pin 9, which is right here, since we're looking at it backwards, brought it up to C13 on CN5 on the underside of the board. There's no pin being bent in the socket. There are no cut traces to prevent it from connecting somewhere. It's just a wire soldered, no bent pins. That is the cleanest way to go to me. All right, that's what I would do because I have the skills to solder that. So that's how I would do it. All right, but the cool thing about this design for Darksoft's Mult-kit here, he did a pretty cool thing. He has a J17 right here. You can solder a pin in there, and then you can basically plug in a wire to that and then bend the pin up on the PAL and either solder or plug the wire into that bent up leg, and it will work exactly the same way. There's no soldering needed if you do it that way, and it will make it work. And that's pretty much for someone who doesn't have a lot of soldering skill. It's a cool option that you could use if you need to. I personally would solder it. All right, besides PAL revision, 2 other important things about this to know is you must have a suicided or dead PCB. You'll notice, or I have my label for which game this was for testing purposes so I can put it back together. This is where the battery normally would be, right here. The battery's been removed from both these PCBs. They're both suicided PCBs. You have to have a suicided board. This kit will not work with a board that still has encryption keys on it. So you have to have a dead board. Please don't go around killing your B boards just to use this kit. If you have a working board and you don't want it, you want to do a kit, please do everything you can. Try to trade with another collector that wants to keep original battery boards. They are out there. I know it can be hard to find. Trust me, I try to swap with CPS3 carts all the time. People say they want to be conservationists and keep the batteries real, but I can't give away battery cards sometimes. So I know it can be hard, but try. So besides having a dead board, the next thing is jumpers. And what's going to pop up on screen here shortly is the jumper list for how you have to set it for the Mult-kit. And basically, the Mult-kit jumpers are set exactly the same way for any game that used a G-PAL. So if you have a Marvel vs. Capcom board you're going to use, your jumpers are already set. If you have a Gigawing, your jumpers are already set. A Hyper Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition, your jumpers are already set, although it's a very expensive board. It's crazy if you're going to use that board for your Mult-kit, but your jumpers would already be set. So here's where I'm talking about jumpers. Boom. They're starting up here in the corner. JP 1, 2, 3, 4. JP stands for jumper. It's 5, 6. All right. Then you come down here, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And here's 14 through 21. Here's 22 through 29. All right. And basically, like I said, this blob here, that means it's shorted. The 2 pins, those 2 pads are connected together. The ones here, those are open. That little thin strip of green there is blank space. So these 2 pads are not connected together. That means they're open. So short, open, open, short, short, open, open, short, open, short, open, short, short, open, 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 short, open. All right. Now, the only way to make sure, absolutely sure, that these are open or shorted is to take your multimeter, set it continuity, and put a probe on both sides of those pads. If it beeps, it's shorted. If it doesn't beep, you're open. All right. It's a very simple thing to do. Just if you need to, if you have one that's open and it needs to be shorted, just take your soldering iron, heat the pads up real quick, just touch a blob of solder to it, and it's pretty easy to short it out. And likewise, if you have one that is shorted that needs to be opened, just get you some solder wick and some flux or a solder sucker and heat it up and suck all the solder off. And like I said, just make sure you take your multimeter and you test both pads to make sure it is open after you clean it off. Okay, so I decided to show you how to do these jumpers, how to solder them, how to check the continuity and all that, just to be safe. Here I have my meter set for continuity. If I touch my meters together, it beeps. I apologize because my meter is super sucko. I need a new one, so sometimes you can't hear the beep. But here we have one that has a blob on it, so this one should be shorted. There we have one that has no blob, and that should be open. Alright, so what I like to do is, you see at the top of these jumpers there's a metal spot there and there's a metal spot at the bottom there. We touch those together, it's going to give us our beep. Like I said, my meter sucks. That's why if you look at the meter there, you got the numbers. Okay, so we have continuity there. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to move these two blocks here. There's nothing coming up until I come and touch this pad. But if I do on the opposite pad, there's nothing. So it's open. Alright. Now I'm going to use this last one here. Let's just say this one is supposed to be shorted. It's not, but just for the hell of it, I'm going to go ahead and show you it, soldering it. You don't necessarily need flux for something as simple as a jumper, but I'm going to use some flux because it just makes everything so much neater and easier when you're soldering. But if you have some good solder and you have any kind of skills, you can just do this really fast and you don't have to worry about needing flux for a jumper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my soldering tip here to start heating it up, and just add a little bit of solder. And there, I have a blob over there now. Alright, it's covering there. And I just jumped that one. So let's take my meter. You can see now it's jumped. Alright. Now let's say I want to remove this blob. I use my trusty soldering gun. You can use solder wick, like I said, put a little more flux up there. I'm going to use my desoldering gun, my Hako 808. And I'm going to heat this up. If I can get it to... Alright. And it just sucked all that solder right up. And I'm going to check it with my meter once again to make sure that it's now open. And as you see, it is open. Solder's all been removed. If I come down here and touch that pad, if I touch the opposite pad, it's open. So that's how you solder or desolder a jumper. It's very easy. Doing all your jumpers can take probably less than 10 minutes. Yeah, so that's how you do that. After that, your board should be ready to accept a kit, and when I come back, I'm going to show you real quick just how to install the Mult-kit, and really should be ready to play some games. Alright, so now we have our B-board. We've made sure that the jumpers are set correctly for a G-PAL. We've installed a G-PAL. If necessary, we've added the jumper wire to make the G-PAL work with a 3 or 4 revision PCB. Now we're ready to go ahead and install this Mult-kit. So the first thing I have is the main board, and we're just gonna, it's gonna slide right, it's gonna connect these two connectors right onto the back here. And it's very precision, so all these little pins here are gonna automatically line up with their respective pins on the sockets they need to go into. So just carefully set it in the connector there, and you're going to want to use your palm and pay attention to where the pins are on the kit here. Like I said, this Proto has really big pins. The final revision, we ordered much more expensive pins that are smaller and will slide right in. So there we are. So that's installed. installed nice right there. Next up we have our ROM socket adapter. I already have the cable installed here. Alright, so this is going to line up right with these sockets. Alright, same thing, we're going to use our palm. We're going to kind of hold it from the bottom and just make sure all the pins go into the socket nice and tight. And like I said, the final revision will go in much easier than this one does. And we just make sure that this ribbon cable right here, this ribbon cable connects to the socket on the main board and the adapter. So they're connected together. Alright. And then the last thing would be to install your LCD cable, which remember will look much different than this in the final revision. It'll be much cleaner. It'll have a much longer cable, and all these buttons and everything will be integrated together. That's basically all there is to installation. Now you just put it on your B-board and power it up. We'll release instructions on how to load your SD cards with games. I've already released a file in the forums that you can download to get your memory card ready to accept the program ROMs. So all you'll have to do is add one file to each game folder for the game to work once you're done, or once you get your kit in. Alright. That's how you do it. Any questions, just let me know. Alright, what you see me holding here is an F-PAL. As you see, it says BGS B3F. Now we recommend you getting a G-PAL, using the instructions in the rest of this video. The G-PAL would be the easiest way to go with the instructions. But if you do just have an F-PAL and you don't want to put up the cash to get a G-PAL, then you can use this F-PAL. It's going to require another wire soldered, just like with the 3 and 4. And in fact, it's going to be the same wire but to a different spot. If you have a F-PAL, instead of soldering a wire to pin 9 like we did with the G-PAL on the revision 3 and 4, you would instead solder it to pin 7 and then take it to CN3 pin C13. But you would do that for any revision, including 5, 6, and 7 if you're using an F-PAL. Alright. So, as I said in the last video, this is a dip package. So we have the socket at the top, and a lot of times you'll have a little notch right here, also a little dot that usually indicates pin 1 on a chip. So pin 1 is here. So pin 7 on the F-PAL is the one we bend up. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this pin right here is the one we would want to bend up. So we're going to bend that up so it doesn't go in the socket when we plug it in. And you're going to just solder a wire to this and then take it up to CN3 C13. You have to do that, like I said, with the F-PAL. For every revision of the B-board, you would have to do that if you're using the F-PAL. I'm not sure if it would work doing it the way Capcom did with the G-PAL, where they didn't lift the pin. I think with the F-PAL you probably have to lift a pin, although I'm not sure because I don't actually use an F-PAL on any of my G-PAL games in my personal collection. But that's basically it. Okay, so let's just say you don't really want to solder a wire to your PCB somewhere. Like I said before, there's the option to connect the PAL directly to a pin on the Mult-kit. This right here is an F-PAL that I've already pulled up pin 7 on. I soldered a wire to, and at the end of the wire I have a little connector that'll plug right into a pin. When you come over and look at the Mult-kit right there, if it'll zoom focus in or not, I don't know. Basically, J17 right there has a pin soldered to it now, right there. You see, J17, that's where you would plug in the wire to the PAL. I've already removed my G-PAL from this board. I'm going to plug this in. I'm going to put the F-PAL in But I'm going to leave the pin out of the socket. Leave the pin out of the socket and leave this disconnected for right now. I'm gonna let you see what happens if when the G-PAL isn't used and the board isn't properly set up. As you can hear, the sounds are all fucked up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and connect that wire directly to that pin. And just like that, it fixes it. So you can see that's an easier way to connect your PAL to the multi-kit if you don't feel like doing the soldering direct to the PCB. I guess it's also convenient if you want to more easily convert your board back. And in addition, if you're using a 3 or 4 board and you don't want to solder that other wire, you can just take your G-PAL and instead connect it to pin 9 instead of pin 7 and connect it to the kit. And you can use that on a 3 and 4 board also. We'll do the same thing. Alright. As I said throughout the rest of the video, if you have any questions on this section, just ask away.
Sit, Kichi, sit. Good dog.